There are moments in life when we feel as if we've been thrust into battles we never chose. Challenges and trials come one after another, making us wonder if fate is mocking us, or if it's all just random chance. But then, when we look deeper, we begin to see something else. These battles seem to be designed specifically for us. They are not accidents. They are not empty randomness. They are a calling. And when that calling echoes, an extraordinary journey begins. A journey not meant for everyone, but for those who are chosen. The chosen ones are not necessarily warriors clad in shining armor. They are not always those who stand at the heights of power or fame. They might be ordinary people, the overlooked, the underestimated, even the rejected. But heaven sees people through a different lens. In the eyes of the Creator, these are the true warriors, for they carry a sacred weapon the world cannot comprehend. It is a sword from the heavens, sharper than any blade known to man, more powerful than any weapon history has ever recorded. This sword is not for display, not a keepsake. It is a living weapon, forged in the armory of heaven, given to those who are ready to step into their mission. Historians have spoken of the sword as a symbol of power and authority. For over 5,000 years, swords have marked dominance and leadership. But the sword given by heaven is something entirely different. It is not a heavy hunk of bronze, nor a cold steel blade. It is a living flame of truth, a beam of light that pierces all darkness, a sign that heaven has not abandoned us in our battles. When the chosen one holds this sword, they do not fight with their own strength alone. They fight with the power of all of heaven, and every strike they make becomes a sacred declaration. This sword is not meant for petty arguments or small disputes of daily life. It is given for true battles, battles of destiny, of mission, of existence. It is a weapon against darkness, against lies, against the forces that try to stop us from stepping into the light. That is why it cannot be placed in the hands of the fearful. It is meant for hearts, wide enough to carry responsibility, brave enough to stand firm, and faithful enough to never back down. You may have never thought yourself worthy of the title chosen. You may be used to being underestimated, dismissed, or feeling too small to do anything great. But heaven's choice has never been based on the standards of the world. It is not based on status, money, or outward wisdom. It is based on the heart, on the longing within, and on the potential only heaven can see. So if you are hearing this calling, it is very possible that you are the one who has been chosen. And if you are chosen, the sword has already been placed in your hand, whether you realize it or not. The difference lies in this. Are you willing to take it up? Many of the chosen have turned away. They know the sword is there, know its power is within reach, but they hesitate, they fear, they doubt themselves, and they believe they are not worthy. But this sword was not given to remain still. It is not a relic to be locked away, nor an artifact to admire from afar. It was given to be used, to be alive, to create change. Every time the sword is raised, darkness trembles. Every time it is left untouched, darkness stretches further. So the question is no longer whether you have the sword. The question is whether you dare to take it and use it. The miracle is that the more the sword is used, the more it becomes a part of the one who wields it. It moves with your every step, reflects the rhythm of your heartbeat, and blends with your breath. It is not something foreign in your hand. It becomes part of you, as if you and it were meant to journey together. But that also means, when you let it sleep, you are letting a part of your true self fall asleep too. When the sword is placed into your hand, it is a moment of transformation, from ordinary to warrior, from forgotten to chosen. It is like the moment Arthur pulled Excalibur from the stone, only greater. Because this is not a legend for kings. This is truth, available to anyone who dares to believe they have been chosen. And when you accept that truth, everything changes. The way you see yourself changes, the way you see the world changes, and even the way darkness sees you changes. This opening is not meant to give you all the answers. It is only meant to open the door. It tells you that you are not alone, not as weak as you think, and not as meaningless as you sometimes feel. You are chosen, and you have been given a weapon beyond human imagination. In the chapters ahead, we will uncover the secrets of this sword, why it was meant for you alone, how it cuts deeper than all lies, why it can outlast time itself, and how it can both destroy and create. But before you step into that journey, you must believe one simple but powerful truth. The sword is already in your hand, and you are ready to use it. So, now, ask yourself, are you ready? Are you willing to rise? look darkness in the eye, and hold that sword in your hand? If the answer is yes, then the journey has already begun. And once it begins, you will no longer fight only for yourself. You will fight for your community, for future generations, for truth, and for the light. That is the mission of the Chosen One. And that is why you are here. When someone dares to take up the sword and accept the truth that they have been chosen, the journey goes far beyond the feeling of receiving a sacred gift. Because this sword is not just a weapon for battle, it is a living symbol of something far deeper: divine authority. In the moment you grip the hilt, you no longer act with your own strength alone. You become a representative of heaven, carrying in your hand the direct commission from the one who created the universe. Perhaps there have been many times in life when you felt you were fighting alone. You gave all your strength, poured in all your wisdom, tried every possible way. Yet the results seemed out of reach. The walls refused to fall, the doors refused to open. But this sword was not given for you to continue struggling on your own. It was given so that you would realize this battle is no longer just yours. It is heaven's battle, and you are simply the vessel through which his will is carried out on earth. Every strike you make with this sword is not just a personal action. It is a declaration that echoes through the spiritual realm. Darkness no longer holds power. Lies no longer have a place. And this battlefield belongs to the light. When you hold the sword, you are not just resisting a challenge or an enemy in your life. You are bearing witness that the power of the Creator is present in this reality, intervening and shifting the outcome. That is what makes this sword unstoppable. It does not merely cut through obstacles. It carries heaven's judgment to tear down the forces that try to keep people from stepping into life and freedom. The miracle is that the sword does not move apart from you. It moves with your every step, flows with your every motion. But the true power does not lie in you. It flows through you. It is like a river pouring into fragile hands, turning every strike into a force that carries the weight of eternity. You are no longer just a person. You become the embodiment of a higher reality, the proof that heaven is truly active in this world. Yet do not think that holding this sword is a simple game. It is not an ornament to display your uniqueness. Every time you raise it, you are writing heaven's decree into reality. Every time you strike, a divine judgment is being fulfilled. That is why it must never be treated lightly or used carelessly. This sword does not exist for you to prove your worth or to show that you are better than others. It was created with one purpose only: to reveal the authority and will of the Most High. There will be moments when you feel too weak to carry this responsibility. And the truth is, you are. But the sword has never depended on human strength. It operates on a different principle: faith. It does not respond to haste or yield to willpower alone. It responds to belief. When you trust the one who gave it to you, when you stand firm in the strength of his promise, the sword becomes sharp, precise, and unstoppable. But when you doubt, when you try to rely on your own strength, it feels heavy, dull, and loses the edge it once had. This is the fundamental difference. The sword does not measure strength by muscle, but by the level of trust you place in heaven. It is like a mirror, reflecting the spiritual condition of the one who holds it. The more you believe, the brighter it shines. The more you doubt, the dimmer it becomes. So holding the sword is not a moment of worldly power. It is a moment of surrender. You hold it not to prove you are strong, but to show that heaven is working through you. When you understand this, you begin to see the change clearly. Every time you take up the sword, darkness retreats, not because you are mighty, but because the one who spoke against darkness still reigns. Every time you face a challenge, doors open not because you are clever, but because the sword carries the seal of divine supremacy. Every prayer, every declaration you make in faith becomes a real strike in the invisible realm, cutting chains, breaking bonds, and releasing light. But never forget, holding the sword is a responsibility. Because it carries the authority of heaven, every action you take carries weight. There is no room for carelessness. There is no room for selfishness. You no longer live for yourself. Every battle you fight, every word you proclaim, holds a significance far greater than you. You are an instrument of heaven, and through you, his will is done. That is both an honor and a burden. But more than anything, it is proof that you have truly been chosen. If, in the previous part, you were invited to believe the sword was in your hand, then now you were invited to take one more step, to recognize that this sword is a commission of divine authority. It transforms every personal battle into part of a greater plan. It turns every strike of your hand into a decree of heaven, and it makes you, once thought to be small, a warrior who carries the weight of eternity. When you understand this, you will no longer see yourself the same way. You will walk, not with pride, but with deep humility, because you know your strength is not your own. You will fight not to protect your ego, but to defend truth, justice, and light. And you will wield the sword not as a fighter hungry for war, but as a messenger of heaven, bringing freedom and life into this world. This is the first lesson the sword teaches you. You no longer fight with your own authority, but with the authority of the one who sent you. And when that authority flows through you, no force can stop the victory that has already been written. When you understand that the sword is not just a weapon, but a commission of divine authority, the journey unfolds a deeper layer, revealing a sacred mystery that makes every warrior of heaven truly unique. This sword is unlike any other. It is not mass-produced or distributed equally. It is handcrafted, forged with a spiritual imprint made only for you. It moves with your breath, responds to your faith and the call within your soul, and only becomes fully alive when held by you. No one else can use it, just as no one else can fully walk the path heaven has laid out for you. If someone else were to touch that sword, it would feel heavy and lifeless, like a door locked by the wrong key. Not because they are weak, but because the sword does not belong to them. It only recognizes your soul. It only moves with you. This is the proof that you are not some forgotten fragment in the sea of humanity. You are a unique, irreplaceable part of an eternal design. And in that moment, the ancient words of God echo like a sacred psalm. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. These words remind you that the weapon in your hand is not only an instrument of battle, it is evidence of the divine identity you've carried since the beginning. That is why you do not need to compare yourself to anyone, nor could you even if you tried. How many times have we looked around and seen others shining, succeeding, being praised, while insecurity creeps in? But this sword declares, once and for all, that comparison is meaningless. You cannot wield someone else's sword, and they cannot wield yours. What you hold in your hand is one of a kind, and only you can unleash its full potential. In the kingdom of heaven, there is no excess, no duplicate, only the sacred uniqueness of purpose. There are doors only you can open. There are battles only you can win. There are territories only you are called to conquer. This sword is not fixed or stagnant. It grows sharp with you, matures with you, and becomes more precise with every step of obedience and every act of faith you offer to heaven. As you draw closer in intimacy with Him, the sword shines brighter. When you drift away, it dims, gently but firmly reminding you, it is not a static weapon, it is a living companion on your soul's journey. And as the Psalms declare, the righteous will flourish like a palm tree, they will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Even in old age, they will still bear fruit. Psalm 92-12:1-4. That same truth applies to your sword. As you walk faithfully, it grows sharper and more fruitful with every passing day, so you cannot avoid this responsibility. If you do not take up your sword, no one else can do it for you. If you retreat, no one else can fill your exact place. There are burdens only you can carry. There is glory only you are destined to enter. This is not a burden of guilt. It is a declaration of heaven's trust in you. He looks at you and says, I know you can. I gave you this weapon because you were made for it. So do not take your sword lightly. Do not look at it and think it holds less value than someone else's. If it is short, it was made for close combat. If it is heavy, it was forged to crush unyielding foes. If it is slim and swift, it was born to pierce through subtle deception. Every design holds meaning, and that meaning is inseparably tied to who you are. The sword is also a mirror, reflecting your true identity. It reminds you that you are not random, not forgotten, not a meaningless grain of sand in the universe. It stands as proof that you have been seen, known, named, and entrusted with a role in a grand design. When you look at it, you are looking into the deepest part of your soul, the part heaven wove together before you ever existed. It whispers, you were not just meant to survive. You were created to conquer. You were not just born to exist. You carry a mission to break through and bring freedom. This honor comes with a responsibility you cannot escape. You cannot transfer the sword, nor let it gather dust in neglect. It is not a keepsake to admire from afar. It is a tool meant for action. Every time you step back, a battle meant for you is left unwaged. And every time you rise, all of heaven shakes, because that battle has begun exactly as it was written from the very beginning. This personal sword is heaven's invitation for you to live out your sacred uniqueness. You do not need to prove anything to the world. You do not need to become anyone's copy. You only need to take hold of the sword that was crafted just for you and let it move according to its design. When you do that, you are standing in your rightful place as the chosen one. And from that place, the world will begin to change. Let the words of the psalm echo in your soul. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139 to 13:14. Every time you take up your sword, remember, you are not random. You are fully known, and you carry in your hand the proof of that truth. This sword is heaven's voice, declaring that you are irreplaceable, and that your battle is an essential part of the eternal symphony. When this truth takes root in you, the questions begin to change. You no longer wonder, do I have a weapon? Or is it strong enough? Instead, you begin to ask, how can I make my sword sharper? How can I unlock its full potential? And those questions will lead you into the next phase of the journey, where the sword is no longer just something you hold, but something that lives within your soul, reflecting spiritual growth, and opening the very path heaven laid out for you before time began. When someone realizes that the sword given to them is unique, tied to their identity and personal mission, the journey leads to an even deeper truth. This sword is not just a tool for attack or defense. It is a map, a strategy, a compass inscribed from heaven itself. It is not simply a sharp weapon for striking down. It is a divine guide to help you navigate the darkest paths of life. There are moments when you stand at a crossroads, unsure of which way to go, unsure which path is right. Chaos clouds your vision, and every option seems like a mistake. In those very moments, the sword becomes your light. It does not merely cut through darkness, it opens a path. Each strike is not only a blow against the enemy, but a revelation of the way forward. It is like a blueprint, encoded with purpose, readable only by you, and walkable only by you. The miracle is that this map is not vague or general. It is written just for you, shaped by your own journey, your enemies, and your specific trials. The sword knows the terrain you're walking. It knows the strength you need. It knows every trap waiting ahead. It does not hand you a grand plan for your entire life. Instead, it gives you each step as you need it. When it's time to move, it lights the way. When it's time to pause, it holds you back. When it's time to fight, it shows you how to strike. That means you are never thrown into battle without guidance. You are not left to stumble in darkness. You are not living by chance. The sword ensures that the strategy is already in place, the path already drawn, and your task is simply to stay connected to the source who gave it. This also means you cannot demand that the sword reveal the entire plan all at once. It is not a map stretched from beginning to end. It is a map that unfolds step by step. It leads you chapter by chapter, battle by battle. It does not give you all the answers at once. This requires you to live in trust and obedience, to walk forward even when you cannot see the full picture, only enough light for the next step. Some people look at challenges and see only meaningless struggle. But when you carry this sword, you begin to see that every battle has purpose. Some battles train you in patience. Some teach you courage. Some awaken compassion. Some declare the power of heaven. Every trial you face has meaning, and the sword reveals that meaning. It doesn't just help you win, it helps you understand why you're fighting and what will be born from the victory. The sword also reminds you that you were not created merely to survive or defend. You were created to advance. You are not just equipped to stay safe. You are equipped to clear the way for yourself and for others. Every strike you make does not just break barriers for you. It clears a path for the generations that follow. You are not just knocking down obstacles. You are building a corridor of light for others to walk through. That is what makes this sword a double-edged weapon. It both destroys and creates. It tears down what hinders, but also builds a new order. It shatters the walls of darkness, yet opens doors into freedom. It does not leave behind empty ruins after every battle. It creates space for light, for life, for the future. Look back at the times you have overcome difficulty. You might think those were just random battles, just passing tests. But in truth, Every one of them opened a new door, shaped a new path. The sword you hold is the hand of heaven itself, not only striking down enemies, but redrawing the map of your life. What matters is that you move forward. The sword will not lead you unless you act. It does not replace your courage or your faith. It only comes alive when you are willing to step out, to fight, to believe in the plan written for you. It will open the way at the right time, but you must be the one to take the step. It will point to the right destination, but you must choose to walk toward it. When you grip the sword tightly, you will begin to see your life differently. It is no longer a scattered sequence of events. It becomes a purposeful journey, with a beginning, a destination, and milestones along the way. The sword reminds you that you are not lost, not forgotten, and that everything is part of a greater design. Without the sword, you may see life as chaos, but with the sword in your hand, you will see clearly that every moment is part of a strategy. Every trial is part of the journey, and every victory is proof of a divine plan. This sword, then, is not only a weapon of war, it is a weapon of direction. It does not just protect you, it leads you. It does not just help you win, it shows you why victory matters. It turns every battle into a meaningful step, and every step into a piece of the bigger picture. And above all, it ensures that you will never walk alone in confusion. Instead, you will always walk with just enough light for each day, each moment, each fight. There is a truth that makes the sword you hold more extraordinary than any other weapon. It is not limited by time or space. What your natural eyes see is only a small slice of reality. But when the sword is lifted, it reaches into deeper layers, into streams that flow far beyond the present moment. It does not only fight for today, it leaves a mark on tomorrow, and even shapes generations yet to be born. When you use the sword, you are not just changing your current situation, you are rewriting the story of the future. Some prayers you whisper today may seem like small echoes, but when combined with the power of the sword, they become strikes that stretch across years, breaking chains that could have bound your descendants. A decision made in the present, an act of faith, can become the foundation upon which future generations build their lives. This sword operates beyond human calculation. It does not just handle what you can see, it cuts into the very roots of things not yet formed. There are dark schemes being planted now, intended to grow and bear fruit years from now. But when you swing your sword in trust, those seeds are cut off before they ever take root. You may not see it with your eyes, but in the unseen realm, entire systems are being transformed. Evil plans are dismantled before they're even formed. Future battles are ended before they ever begin. That means you are not fighting for yourself alone. Every strike you make today may be to protect a child not yet born, to preserve the freedom of a generation who will never know your name. Every victory you gain is more than a personal win. It becomes a legacy. You leave behind ground that has been cleared, an atmosphere that has been purified, a path that has been made ready. Those who walk after you will move faster, freer, and stronger because you took up your sword and made a way. So never underestimate the power of small actions. A single declaration of faith, one moment when you choose to stand instead of give up, one decision made in quiet obedience. These all echo in the unseen realm and create waves that reach far beyond time. You may not see the outcome immediately. You may feel like nothing is changing. But remember, the sword works in dimensions beyond your sight. It plants seeds of victory for the future, and at the appointed time, those seeds will bloom. Because of this, there may be times you feel discouraged. You pray, you fight, but nothing seems different. Do not be quick to assume the sword is ineffective. It is working at a deeper level, in another realm, in a moment not yet revealed. Be patient, stay faithful, keep using it. It may be years before you or your children see the change you've begun today. Imagine this. What you do now becomes a wall of protection for your descendants. It becomes the foundation for your community. It becomes the light that guides those you've never met. You are not just a warrior of the present. You are a writer of spiritual history for the future. This sword gives you the power to leave a mark not only on your own life, but on stories that have not even begun. This is one of the holiest responsibilities of the chosen. You cannot live only for yourself. You cannot carry the sword just to guard your small corner of the world. You are called to expand, to make your mark, to leave a legacy. Every strike you make in trust not only saves you, but also saves others. People you may never meet. When you understand this, you will no longer live in limitation. You will no longer be bound by the thought, "I am not enough," or "I am too small." You will understand that it is precisely in that smallness that heaven has given you a weapon that transcends time, turning every action you take into part of a greater story. You will see that each small victory you gain is a piece of an eternal tapestry. And if you're hearing these words, something in your heart may already be stirring. You know you can no longer live as someone just trying to stay safe. You are called to be a trailblazer. The sword is already in your hand, and now is the time to use it not just for today, but for all the days to come. If this message speaks to you, don't let it remain just a thought. Turn it into action. Leave a mark in the visible world, just as you are leaving a mark in the invisible one. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that they too carry a sword. Leave a comment about the battle you're facing, so together we can see the strength of this community of the chosen. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any encouragement on your journey. Every like, every share, every comment is more than a digital action. It is a step of faith. It is your way of marching alongside thousands of warriors around the world. Because when we stand alone, a single sword may open only a narrow path. But when we rise together, every sword becomes a strand in a radiant network of light, sweeping darkness away from places it once ruled. When you share, you are not just clicking a button. You are giving someone a chance to realize they carry a sword too. And when they rise, this entire community becomes stronger, and the world will never be the same. Remember, the sword you carry is not bound to the present. It reaches into the future, touches generations to come, and transforms what once seemed unchangeable. Do not let it go silent. Take it up, use it, and let the world know that we are walking with weapons forged in heaven. And if you're with me on this journey, show the world with your actions today. There is a secret that many overlook. The true power of the sword does not come from muscle, skill, or human effort. It is not activated by striving, nor does it yield to pressure. This sword is not sharpened by shouting or external intensity. It only becomes truly powerful when it is nourished by intimacy with the one who gave it. This is the paradox. A weapon so mighty it can break through the greatest strongholds only reveals its full power when you are quietly sitting in the presence of God, in stillness, when your heart is listening and aligned. Many people believe they need to do more, to appear stronger, in order to win. But in truth, the sword is not sharpened by the sweat of your hands, but by the harmony between your soul and its source of life. When you distance yourself from God, when you rely on your own strength, the sword begins to fade like a flame lacking air. Not because it loses power, but because it cannot function without connection. It was not made to be wielded by personal will. It was made to flow in the current of power from above when you are close to God. When you nurture that intimacy through prayer, listening, and obedience, the sword in your hand becomes sharper than ever. It does not need you to strain. It only needs you to be in position. It doesn't ask for performance, only for communion. Outwardly, you may look ordinary, even weak in the eyes of the world, but in the unseen realm, the sword in your hand burns brightly, and every strike carries the weight of heaven. This is also why some fight endlessly and still fail, while others whisper a simple prayer and shift the atmosphere. The secret is not in their skill, but in their intimacy with God. The sword does not respond to noise. It responds to union. It sharpens in direct proportion to how closely your heart aligns with His. It shines according to how deeply you walk in obedience and trust. This also means the sword is a constant test. It reflects your relationship with God. When you are distant, battles feel heavier, victories feel harder. When you are close, everything becomes clearer, quicker, more decisive. Not because your situation changes, but because the flow of power through you changes. The sword becomes a gauge of where you are in your spiritual journey. It is not there to flatter you, but to remind you to always return to your source. Remember, this intimacy is not a fleeting emotion. It is not a passing moment of inspiration. It is a relationship nurtured daily through small choices. When you choose to listen instead of rush, to trust instead of doubt, to obey instead of resist, the sword is sharpened once again. This is a continuous, unseen process, but it is the foundation for every victory you will ever achieve. This intimacy also teaches a vital truth. You cannot use the sword to prove yourself. It does not exist for display or for gaining admiration. It does not respond to ego. It only responds to love. It does not move when you try to show you are strong. It moves when you humble yourself and allow the strength from above to flow through you. That's why those who seek power to glorify themselves will find the sword powerless in their hands. But those who seek power only to obey and honor the one who gave it will find the sword becoming an unstoppable flame. You may have walked through seasons where every battle felt heavy, every prayer seemed unanswered. That may be the sign that you have drifted from the source. The sword has not weakened, but it cannot operate when you rely solely on yourself. In those moments, the only way to regain power is to return to God, to restore the intimacy that was lost. When you come back, when you let your heart soften, the sword lights up again, like a flame catching wind, like a blade meeting the whetstone. This intimacy has another effect. It causes the sword to become part of you. As you walk in unity, you no longer separate yourself from your weapon. Every word you speak, every move you make, carries the weight of the sword. It is no longer just something you hold. It becomes your breath, your heartbeat, the current running through every moment. You and the sword become one, and the power you express is simply a reflection of that deep communion. And in this union, you discover a miracle. Victory is no longer something you have to strive for. It becomes the natural result of being in the right place. You no longer need to prove yourself or exhaust yourself trying to win. You only need to stay close to God, and the sword will take care of the rest. Intimacy becomes strength. Connection becomes power. Listening becomes the sharp point that pierces through every stronghold. This is the secret of true warriors. They do not only know how to strike, they know how to be still. They do not only know how to shout on the battlefield, they know how to whisper in prayer. They do not only know how to defeat enemies, they know how to stay close to the source. And because of that, every time they step onto the battlefield, the sword in their hand is sharper than any other weapon, not because they are strong, but because they have allowed the strength of the Almighty to flow completely through them. Remember this: the sword does not respond to human strength. It responds to intimacy. It does not care how skilled you are. It only cares how close you are. It is not sharpened by your hand. It is sharpened by your heart. When you are distant, it dims. When you return, it shines. And in that shining, you will witness victories you could never have achieved on your own. When a warrior realizes that their sword does not respond to effort or skill, but to intimacy and connection with God, everything about the journey begins to change. You no longer walk under the illusion that you can master every battle on your own. You begin to understand that the true power of the sword lies not in what you do, but in the relationship you cultivate. And this truth becomes a psalm engraved deep within your soul. Your sword is not sharpened by human strength. It is ignited by closeness, alignment, and intimacy with the one who gave it. In the natural world, strength is always measured by muscle, skill, and strategy. People believe that if they train hard enough, gather enough experience, anyone can win. But the sword from heaven operates by a different law. It is not impressed by loud shouts or blind striving. It only responds when your heart is in the right place. It only sharpens when your soul finds its breath in God's presence. This also explains why some fight endlessly and still fail, while others whisper a simple prayer and shift the entire atmosphere. The secret is not in their technique. It is in their connection. The sword does not seek performance. It seeks faithfulness. It does not require physical strength. It requires a heart that knows how to bow. You may feel small, weak, and insignificant in the eyes of the world. But if your heart stays near to God, the sword in your hand still burns brightly. Every strike you make does not come from your own power, but from a force beyond human understanding. And in that moment, you will witness walls fall, not because you were strong, but because you allowed heavenly strength to flow through you. As Psalm 25-14 says, "The Lord confides in those who fear him. He makes his covenant known to them." This is the promise for those who do not chase the noise, but seek stillness. When you walk in intimacy, you are given not only strength, but direction. When you draw close, you are not only handed a sword, but entrusted with the secrets of heaven. And this also means that you cannot live at a distance and expect your sword to stay sharp. Distance causes the sword to dim, not because it loses power, but because it only functions in unity. When you drift away, battles feel heavier. Prayers feel harder, but every time you return, the sword immediately lights up again, light in your hand, pulsing with unending strength. It becomes both a gauge of your relationship and a constant invitation to return. Intimacy is not a fleeting emotional moment. It doesn't come from short bursts of passion that quickly fade. It is built from small choices, made daily. Choosing to listen instead of rush. Choosing to trust instead of doubt. Choosing obedience instead of rebellion. Each of those decisions sharpens the sword once more, and little by little, your sword becomes so radiant that even your enemies tremble before it touches them. The beauty is that as you live in this intimacy, the sword no longer feels separate from you. It blends into who you are, becoming part of your breath, your heartbeat, your words. Everything you do, everything you speak, carries its strength. You no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer need to perform for approval. You only need to stay close to God, and that intimacy will turn you into a warrior the darkness cannot withstand. And then you will see, victory is no longer a burden to chase. It becomes the natural result of being in the right place. Just like a tree planted by streams of water naturally bears fruit in season, when you are rooted in intimacy, your sword becomes naturally sharp, and victory becomes inevitable. Let this psalm be a pillar on your journey. The sword is not sharpened by human strength, but by the depth of intimacy with God. This is not just advice. It is a spiritual truth. It frees you from the burden of striving and brings you back to the one place you truly need to be, His presence. From this moment on, let intimacy become your breath, and you will see the sword in your hand begin to glow, light and sharp, unstoppable. And when that happens, you will understand that you are not just fighting with a weapon, but with a relationship. A relationship powerful enough to transform the world around you. Every time you take up the sword and strike with it, what happens is far more than a clash between you and the enemy before you. In truth, each blow sends shockwaves through the spiritual realm, like ripples across a still lake, changing the atmosphere and space around you. You are not just driving out darkness. You are reshaping the entire environment. The sword is not merely a weapon. It is an instrument of transformation. Picture a room filled with smoke and dust, where every breath feels heavy and difficult. When you swing the sword, it is like a fresh wind sweeping in, clearing the air, restoring a space where life can breathe freely again. This is what happens in the unseen world. Your strikes do not simply tear down enemies. They sweep away the haze of fear, lies, and despair, opening up space for truth, peace, joy, and light to flood in. This carries immense power, because you are not only fighting for yourself, you are creating a new space for those who will come after you. Every victory you gain is not only a personal milestone, it shifts the atmosphere around you, so that anyone who enters it feels the difference. They may not see the sword, they may not hear the clash, but they will feel the shift. Lighter, brighter, more filled with hope. That is why the sword does not only change situations, it transforms environments. It turns places once claimed by darkness into grounds where light can thrive. It turns fear-filled rooms into sanctuaries of peace. It transforms divided communities into spaces of connection and healing. Every strike is a declaration. This space no longer belongs to darkness. It now belongs to light. And the beauty is, those changes do not vanish when the battle ends. They remain in the atmosphere like a lasting imprint. When you take up the sword and fight, you are rewriting the rules for that territory. Chains that once bound others are broken. Lies that once dominated are silenced. In their place, truth, light, and life begin to reign. There will be times when you feel like a small person standing in a vast place. But when the sword touches the space around you, you'll see that even a single beam of light is enough to drive out the dark. Even a small flame can spark a great fire. Every strike, no matter how small, leaves a mark. And that mark spreads, resonates with others, and gradually transforms an entire region. The sword also teaches you something vital. You must not overlook the spiritual atmosphere around you. You might think you're only fighting for one situation, but in truth, you're affecting an entire ecosystem. Darkness does not come only as isolated enemies. It cultivates atmospheres, breeds fear, spreads deception. And when you wield the sword, you're not just striking down enemies. You're dismantling the climate that sustained them. It's like uprooting a tree rather than picking its leaves. Darkness cannot easily return once the soil has been cleansed. That transformation doesn't stop with you. It reaches those around you. Imagine someone walking into the space where your battle took place. They may not know what happened, but they'll feel the shift. Less heaviness, less tension, less fear. They may not know your name or your fight, but they'll breathe easier. That is the clearest evidence. You are not just fighting for yourself. You are clearing the way and changing the atmosphere so others can walk in freedom too. The sword carries a deeper truth. Every strike is like a decree being spoken. It doesn't just defeat an enemy. It declares, this atmosphere belongs to the light. And from that moment, the spiritual rules are rewritten. Darkness no longer has the right to rule. Lies no longer have permission to dominate. Fear no longer has the power to bind. In their place, joy, peace, and truth take over. Every time you lift the sword, you are reshaping the environment to reflect heaven's design. You may not always see the immediate effect. You may think you're just fighting in a quiet corner, just defending yourself. But in the unseen realm, a vast landscape has already shifted. Every time you persist, every time you strike in faith, part of the atmosphere is purified. And slowly, the world around you begins to change. Remember, the sword is not only a tool for victory, it is a tool for atmosphere, for rewriting the story of a community, a territory, even a generation. You are not only conquering, you are creating. You are not only fighting, you are renewing. Every battle you win doesn't just rescue you. It opens the door for many others to live in a space that is fresh, clean, and full of light. And that is both your sacred responsibility and your great honor. Every strike is a decree. Every battle is a turning point. And every victory is proof that light always has the power to reshape darkness. You are not only a warrior, you are a builder, a restorer, a transformer of the spiritual atmosphere around you. There will be moments when you're surprised that the sword in your hand is silent. You see a door, a challenge, an enemy, and you think it's time to fight. But when you swing the sword, it doesn't respond. It doesn't light up. It doesn't strike. It doesn't move. You feel blocked, as if there's an invisible wall in your way. At first, this can be frustrating. You might think you've grown weak, or that the sword has lost its sharpness. But the truth is this: the sword never grows weak. It is simply selective. It knows which battles are yours to fight, and which ones you are not called to enter. This is wisdom that surpasses human understanding. People often want to rush into everything, to prove themselves, to open every door. But this sword is aligned with the will of heaven, and it will never strike in a battle that doesn't belong to you. It will not let you waste strength on things that will not bring true victory. It protects you from fights that would only distract you or lead you off course. At times, this is hard to accept. You see an opportunity that looks perfect, but the sword remains still. You try to force your way in, but the door stays closed. You feel abandoned, but then, with time, you look back and realize, if you had charged in, you would have been wounded, exhausted, or would have lost something far more important. The sword held you back, not to deny you victory, but to ensure that you only engage in battles that matter, battles where victory has already been prepared for you. The sword is like a wise teacher, one that knows exactly when to fight, when to wait, and when to retreat. It is not swayed by the tempting appearance of opportunity, nor by your urgency. It only moves in perfect alignment. And when it does choose to strike, you can be certain the victory is already sealed. We often think courage means rushing into every battle, but true courage is greater. It means having the patience to wait, the wisdom to walk away from battles that aren't yours. Some doors will never open, not because you're not strong enough, but because they were never meant for you. Some paths will never become clear, not because you are unworthy, but because walking them would lead you astray. The sword knows better than you, and it protects you through its silence. This also teaches a crucial lesson. Not every battle needs you. Some conflicts, some arguments, some challenges may seem urgent, but the sword will not allow you to step in because you were not called to fight there. Someone else has been equipped for that fight. You, on the other hand, are being preserved for another mission. Accepting this helps you stay focused, stay clear, and avoid being scattered. The sword also carries another kind of wisdom. It knows the exact timing. Sometimes you are called to fight, but not yet. If you rush in too early, the sword will feel heavy and unresponsive. But when the time comes, it ignites with light and power, as if pulling you into the battle itself. That is the sign that you're in the right moment, the right place, and the right plan. This reminds you that the journey is not just about strength. It's about alignment. You cannot rely solely on your own desire. You must learn to follow guidance. The sword becomes a tool that teaches you trust, patience, and the discipline to let go of what isn't yours. In that process, you become wiser, steadier, and more mature. The truth is, the sword chooses your battles not to limit you, but to protect you. It does not steal opportunities. It opens the right path. It does not make you weaker. It makes you strong in the right way. Every time it is silent, it is not failure. It is a gentle reminder. Not yet. Not here. Not this battle. And when the time is right, the sword in your hand will feel alive, weightless, razor sharp, ready for you to step forward with absolute confidence that victory is certain. The most beautiful part is, when you allow the sword to choose your battles, you will no longer feel exhausted as before. You won't spread your strength too thin. You won't be distracted in 1,000 directions. Instead, you will focus on the battles that matter, and you will win them. Each victory builds on the last, clearing the way for the next. And soon, you'll realize you're not just surviving, you're building a legacy of victory. The sword teaches you that discipline matters just as much as strength. Strength helps you win a battle, but discipline helps you win the journey. That discipline is the wisdom to strike only when necessary, to fight only when called, to move only when the time is right. That is how a warrior not only wins battles, but triumphs through life. And this is the difference between someone who simply fights and someone who is a true warrior. The former fights by instinct. You fight by guidance. They use the sword to satisfy ego. You use the sword to fulfill your mission. They rush into everything and burn out. You choose the right battles and secure lasting victories. That is the true power of the sword when it chooses your battles for you. There is a truth that every chosen warrior must engrave deep in their heart. The sword in your hand is not just a symbol or a weapon. It is the word of God, alive and full of power. This is not a sword forged by human fire, not made of rare metals, but born from the very breath that created the universe. When you wield this sword, you are not simply fighting with spiritual strength. You are releasing the creative word that once caused light to burst forth from darkness, that once split the sea in two, that once called the dead back to life. Hebrews 4:12 declares, "The word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." This is not some distant metaphor. It is reality. When you hold the sword, you are holding the only power capable of piercing through every disguise, every lie, every hardened layer of the human heart. No wall can stand. No deception can hide. No force can withstand it. You must understand that this sword is not only for striking down external darkness, it is also the weapon that exposes, reveals, and clarifies what is hidden within you. It is not just an offensive tool. It is a mirror that strips away masks and reveals what is true, what is false, what is human will, and what is heaven's intention. That's why, when you hold the sword, you must not think it's only meant to be used against others. It will also touch you, refine you, sharpen you. Every word you speak in faith, when rooted in the Word of God, becomes a strike of this sword. And that strike is unlike the hollow words of the world. It carries life, truth, and power to change reality. When you declare a promise from Scripture, you are not just quoting a sentence. You are activating the sword. Those words become a sharp blade, cutting through doubt, darkness, and resistance. This is why you must be filled with the Word. The sword is only sharp when you know what it holds. You cannot wield an unnamed sword and expect it to unleash its power. You must know its lines, its light, its very essence. And the only way to know is to live in the Word, to eat it like daily bread, to drink it like water for your thirsty soul. When the Word of God fills you, the sword in your hand becomes so sharp that a single strike can shift the entire spiritual atmosphere. Imagine standing before a towering mountain of fear. Instead of shouting into the void, you speak the word. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. In that moment, the sword ignites. It doesn't just strike the fear. It redefines your inner world, anchors your soul, and gives you courage. Or when you face deception, you declare, "The truth will set you free." At that moment, invisible chains break. darkness loses its grip. Your battles are not just about using force to overpower. They are about using the word to reset reality. This sword is unlike any other weapon. It both destroys and creates. It cuts down darkness, but also opens the way for light. It shatters chains, but also makes room for freedom. It silences lies, but also plants seeds of truth. But remember, this sword cannot be used carelessly. It is not something to wave around at will. It responds to faith. It responds to genuine connection with the word. If you speak empty words, it stays silent. If you repeat promises as lifeless habit, it does not shine. The sword does not move by memory. It moves by belief. When you declare the word with deep trust, with surrendered obedience, and in unity with God's will, the sword bursts into radiant flame, sharp enough that darkness dissolves on contact. This also means that when you wield the sword, you are not just fighting, you are preaching. Every strike is a sermon without words, a living testimony that the Word of God truly holds power. Others may watch you and see that you don't just talk about faith, you embody it. You don't just believe silently, you let that belief take form as a sword, and the world must bow before its power. This sword, the Word, teaches a foundational truth. You do not fight with human weapons. The world uses force, cleverness, and tactics. You use the Word. And the Word is enough to turn everything around. When God said, "Let there be light," light appeared. When He said, "Lazarus, come out," life returned. And when you, in faith, declare His words, you are borrowing the very voice of heaven to change the world. This is your sacred responsibility and your greatest honor. Every word you speak, when rooted in God's Word, can become a sword that cuts through darkness. Every prayer, when grounded in the Word, can shift destinies. Every time you face an enemy and hold the sword with trust in the Word, you will not be defeated. The sword is the Word, and the Word is the breath of creation. When you understand this, fear will no longer rule you. You will know that you always hold in your hand the most powerful, most precise, most unstoppable weapon. And when you wield it in faith, you are not just fighting. You are reshaping the world around you. There is a truth every chosen warrior must face. The sword from heaven is never given to the timid. It is not held by those whose only aim is safety, who avoid challenge, who seek a smooth path. It only exists in the hands of those ready to go into the darkest places, to enter the fiercest battles, to stand firm in the face of what others shrink back from. And that is the final test every warrior must pass. Because this sword does not only measure faithfulness or intimacy, it demands a bold heart, a soul that does not quiver before the roaring darkness. You will see this clearly when you truly enter battle for the first time. The darkness will not flee easily. It will struggle, erecting strong walls, creating illusions to make you doubt yourself. It will roar that you are not strong enough, whisper that you will fail. It will use every means to sow fear, for fear is what makes people drop the sword. And you will feel trembling from within, feel anxiety rising like a storm, feel your legs wanting to retreat. It is at that moment the third prophetic sign emerges. It is not a number of knowledge, but of revelation. It reminds you that the sword only ignites when you have the courage to step into the deepest dark. This is the final seal, a mark reserved only for warriors who dare to go forward when all others have stopped. You may not see the light around you yet, but when you move forward, the sword in your hand bursts into flame, and heaven moves with every strike you make. Psalm 23:4 has this eternal word: "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Listen closely, because this is not just a poetic promise. It is a commitment from the one who gave you the sword. He knows you will enter valleys of darkness. He knows there will be places where you see no way out. But He also knows you will not walk alone. The light in your hand will never be extinguished. And He stands with you, lifting and strengthening you with His infinite power. True courage does not mean you never feel fear. True courage means you look fear in the eye and still move forward. It does not deny that darkness is terrifying. It declares that the light in your hand is stronger. It does not hide that the battle is intense. It proclaims that the victory is already decreed. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to walk through it. And when you dare to walk through it, you not only free yourself, you clear the way for many others. Some are too weak to fight, Some laid down their swords long ago. Some are bound by chains of doubt. But when they see you, a warrior still standing, daring to raise the sword, faith in them is awakened. Your courage lights a flame in their hearts, so they can step out of darkness too. One brave soul can change a generation. Because of this, the sword never operates in the hand of one who retreats. It is silent in the presence of cowardice. But in the hand of one who dares to enter the shadowy valley, it blazes like fire. It resonates with each heartbeat, shines with every prayer uttered, strikes like thunder through the sky. In that moment, darkness no longer merely opposes you. It stands against the power of heaven channeled through your sword. Imagine that moment. You step into the darkest place, cold, full of mocking voices and looming shadows. You hear the whisper in your mind, "Give up, you're not strong enough." But instead of stepping back, you grip the sword tightly. You draw in a deep breath, and then, in faith, you strike. At that very moment, darkness explodes in fragments. Chains snap, the atmosphere quakes. Not only you are freed, the space around you is renewed. That is the power of the third prophetic sign. It does not merely mark the bravery of an individual. It is a declaration that heaven has placed its bet on you, that each time you move forward in courage, the invisible realm shifts. That no darkness can stand before a warrior who enters the deep valley with a sword of flame in hand. Let Psalm 23:4 be engraved in your heart. Do not just hear it as ancient verse. Let it become the breath for every step you take. Each time fear rises, remind yourself, I do not walk alone. He is with me. Each time darkness encircles you, remind yourself, the sword in my hand is not mine alone. It belongs to the one who promised to protect me. And each time you feel like laying down, remember that those moments are the ones where courage is truly proved. The third prophetic sign is not an idea. It is a call. It calls you out of comfort. It calls you into the places where your heart trembles. It calls you to stand when others bow. It is the mark for warriors who are ready to become torches in the darkness, not to glorify themselves, but to guide many others. And when you answer that call, you will see the sword in your hand shine as never before. This is the final revelation. Courage is the language the sword understands best. When you dare to be brave, you are not just holding a weapon. You become the weapon. When you dare to step forward, you are not only carrying light, you become light. And when you dare to face the darkness, all of heaven leans in behind you, so that every strike you make resounds like thunder, engraved in history that you did not shrink back. You have walked a long journey. From the moment you realized the sword is not an ordinary weapon, to when you understood it carries the authority of heaven. From discovering it was made just for you, no one else can touch it, to recognizing it is sharpened by intimacy, not by human strength. You have seen it cut through lies, open a way through chaos, change the atmosphere around you. You have learned that it does not strike randomly, but moves only in battles meant for you. You have known that it is the living word, and you have heard the final prophetic call, courage. Now, this is no longer theory, no longer a story told. This is the moment you stand at the threshold, the sword blazing in your hand, and the world before you waits. Darkness is still there, the valleys still stretch, the walls still rise. But you have changed. You no longer walk in doubt. You have become a warrior, not because you are perfect, but because you bear the mark. Not because you are stronger than others, but because you chose to believe, to be intimate, to be courageous. When you hold the sword, remember, you are not alone. Every strike you raise echoes of all heaven. Every step you take is a decree carved deeply that light will never be swallowed by darkness. You do not fight only for yourself. You are paving the way for others. You are rewriting the story for a generation. You are sowing seeds of freedom, of truth, of light. And those seeds will grow even when you cannot see them. Never forget that this sword does more than destroy. It also builds. It does more than strike down. It also opens. Every time you swing the sword, you are not just shattering chains. You are building a bridge to peace, to hope, to a future where darkness cannot rule. And every soul who crosses that bridge, every life set free by your strike, becomes evidence of the mission you carry. There will be days when you feel weary. There may be nights you sit in silence and ask, can I go on? Recall the journey. Recall the marks that have been etched in your heart. This sword has never been silent. It has only waited for you to move forward. It is still shining, still sharp, still full of power, and still bound to you because you are chosen. Take a deep breath. Listen to the whisper of the one who gave you the sword. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not grow faint-hearted, for I am your God. I will uphold you. I will help you. I will hold you with my right hand of righteousness. These words are not just sound. They are foundation. They are strength. They are the pulse in every step you take. Now, the door is opening. You may feel the thick darkness outside, but you can also see the light blazing in your hand. This is not the end. This is the beginning. Your journey does not end in stories heard. It begins when you step out of safety and allow the light in your hand to pierce the darkness before you. Walk. Let every step leave a mark. Let every strike of your sword open the way. Let your courage kindle a flame in others. And remember that you are never just ordinary. You are chosen. You hold in your hand the most powerful sword heaven has ever given to humanity. And when you hold it with faith, no force can stand against you. The world is waiting. A world full of trials, but also full of opportunity for light to shine. A world where darkness thinks it is won, but will quake when you appear. A world that needs you not to stand behind, but to step forward, to take the sword, to break the chains, to proclaim that light still stands, that truth still lives, and that life triumphs. This is your mission. This is the legacy you are called to build. And here is the final affirmation. You are not just a warrior. You are a warrior marked by purpose. The sword in your hand is proof, and your strikes will echo for eternity. So rise up, grip the sword. Enter the battle not with fear, but with faith. For now, the story is no longer just words you hear. It is the life you live. And when history looks back, it will not remember the darkness. It will remember the light that burst forth from the sword you dared to hold in your hand. Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.